Hello, today I'm going to show you my potion factory. Now, this potion factory I made in 1.5. You can't actually make this in an earlier version because there's new features that were added to 1.5, namely the droppers, hoppers, and comparators that make this potion factory possible. Also, I want to point out that I built this all in survival multiplayer, so it involved a lot of mining, a lot of worrying about creepers, and of course you can't fly, so that's why you'll see me walking around the factory. But it is possible. You can build this in survival, so you know, give it a shot. You can see the factory right in front of me right here. It's that very large building next to the farm. Now it takes up a lot of room, mostly because the redstone circuitry is pretty complicated. So let's go take a look and I will show you how it works. So this took me about 2 weeks to build. The major material that took a lot of work was the redstone. It took about 50 stacks, I would say, maybe. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of lag here in this multiplayer server. Should go away in a minute though. So here you can see the control room of the factory. This is where you make the potions, and this is where they come out. Now all the guts are sort of behind this wall, in front of me and into the right. So let's start off and I'll show you how it works before we talk about what's actually going on. So this here is where you choose what kind of potion you want. Now this can make every potion in the game. That was important to me, that it was simple to use and it could make every potion. So let's make the most common potion that I use is a speed potion. So we select this speed lever. Now over here you select some options for the potion. Let's make it an extended potion. That's an 8-minute potion. These are all, you know, it's not necessary to choose these. They're all optional. And when you're done, you press the button. And you'll see it begins to light up the indicator lights to let you know what stage it's on, what step it's on in making the potion. Now the first step, nether wart, is involved if you know about making potions for every potion. Then there's a main ingredient. Every potion takes a main ingredient, and these levers here correspond directly to what that main ingredient is. For a speed potion, it is sugar. Then after that, you get the either extended or potent potion, and that's either glowstone or redstone or glowstone actually. Corrupt is an option. Certain potions require this. Invisibility potion is probably the biggest one you're familiar with, and that involves adding a fermented spider eye at the end to corrupt the potion. Potion of slowness also requires that. Then finally there's the splash step that adds a gunpowder to turn it into a splash potion. And then our last step here is complete, and that just basically means the potion is complete and it is going to be delivered to you from the brewing stand, and that involves a series of droppers and a stream of water that actually goes underneath us. Now when that is, and the potion is done, it will show up here in this chest. And we got about I would say another 20 seconds or so. Now, each stage takes 20 seconds. If you made it in a brewing stand, it would be 20 seconds. It's a little slower here, but it's still pretty efficient. You'll be able to hear the click of the droppers and a little ding. That ding there tells you that the potion is done. If we look in here at the end, here are our speed potions, 1, 2, and then the other one was here because there was an empty spot there. So here are our speed potions. That's basically how it works. Like I said, you can make every potion in the game. It's very simple to use, and it's also efficient. If you don't want a splash potion or you don't want an extended potion, it will skip that stage. It won't make you wait for it. So the simplest potion will just take 2 steps, be done in about 45 seconds, and delivered to you a couple seconds later. Or you can make a very complicated potion. Invisibility potion involves every step except for the gunpowder step, I believe, and you can do that too. So let me show you a little bit around the inside of the factory, explain to you how it works. It's actually really interesting. It's not terribly complicated to understand, but it is complicated when you look at it because there is a lot of redstone wire. The actual logic isn't difficult, but the routing of all the wire is very, very tricky to sort of comprehend just by looking at it. But feel free to ask me questions in the comments, and I will answer anything to help you understand how it works if you want to build one of these yourself. So right here is where all the ingredients are stored. As you can see, I have droppers down here, and they're each filled with ingredients. Here's the golden carrots, there's all the melons there, blaze powder. Now there's actually 12 different ingredients. 8 for the 8 types of potions: redstone, glowstone, and netherwort, and gunpowder. And then there's the water bottles. And these are just chests filled with water bottles, and the upper chest is connected to the lower chest by a hopper and will automatically fill up that way. And then I also have a chest of empty bottles here and some water, so you can keep this filled easily, because you know you're going to use three bottles every time you make a potion. Now let me jump up here for a second, and I can show you what happens when you go to these dispensers. So you can see here, maybe you can see a little better if I go on the other side. There's nothing above me. You can see here when the dispensers are activated, they will shoot the ingredients into these streams here, which gather at this hopper. And we can go now take a look and see where that hopper goes, which is down below us. This part is pretty simple. It goes directly into the top of a brew stand. And here is the brew stand. This is sort of the heart of the potion factory and the most interesting part. And that hopper right there funnels all the ingredients into this brewing stand here. Now the hoppers to the right come from the water bottles, and they go in the side, and that's a new thing with hoppers. If for a brewing stand, the water bottles go in the side and the ingredients go in the top. That's how you can distinguish where they're going to be put into the brewing stand. Now these hoppers are actually pre-queued up with all of the water bottles, but these two hoppers here, the one on the right and the one on the bottom, actually need to be shut off, because otherwise the water bottles would just flow right through the hopper and come right out the dispenser on the bottom. So they have to be turned off until you're ready to accept a water bottle, and this one is turned on at the very end when the potions are done. And the potions are done, they go through these two hoppers, go to this dropper here, which automatically shoots out the potions. There's a comparator in the back that looks to see when it's full and shoots out the potions, and they go down this stream here, which goes under the floor we were on before, and eventually makes its way through a bunch more droppers to that chest that you saw. Now there's actually ice under this floor to make the potions go extra quick. Water on top of ice is a very fast way to transmit objects. I tried doing the ice trick up here with this water, but it was too hard to block it from light, and if the ice melted, it would flooded this and would totally wash away all the circuits I spent a lot of time doing. Very frustrating, and it wasn't worth that extra second of speed to do ice, so there's no ice there. But anyways, you can't really see it from here, but there's signals that go to these hoppers from behind them that turn them on and off. Another thing you will notice is that there are lots of colored wool here, and I use the colored wool to sort of distinguish the different types of signals. Now I started doing this halfway through building this factory, so there's not colored wool everywhere, and in retrospect I should have done the whole thing in colored wool because it made it very easy, but most of the important parts are colored. And you see here with the 6 sort of basic colors, red, green, blue, yellow, orange, and purple, are that correspond to the 6 stages that I talked about earlier. Whereas red is stage 1, and green is stage 2, and so on. And right here, they're actually going right to those indicator lamps to light that up. And that's basically all they're doing here. They also are necessary. You know, stage 1, for example, is necessary to turn on the hopper to add the water bottles. Stage 6 is necessary to turn on the hopper on the bottom to drop the water bottles out when you're finished. So that's why those signals are here now. Let's go back out to the control room, and I'm going to make another potion, and I'm going to go back Actually, I won't make another potion yet. Let me show you the control signals and where they go from those levers. And this is actually kind of neat. All of those levers packed up right against each other. It was actually kind of tricky to route all these signals, because if you put the signals right next to each other, they short out. And this is a little trick I discovered. If you use redstone repeaters and you alternate them, and you have one signal going up and then every other signal going down, then these signals are never going to short out. The wires will never be connected. It's still tricky to route all these. As you see, I have to go all the way up to the ceiling, and then these go underground to prevent them from conflicting. But it is possible, which is nice. It makes it nice to be able to put the levers right next to each other. So basically, this is kind of complicated to explain, so I will try to go slowly. And again, if you want me to go into more detail, please just ask me questions. But choosing those various levers is going to choose your main ingredient, at least all of these, for the stage where you need to add your main ingredient, which is basically stage 2. So stage 2, which is the green stage, will cause the main ingredient to be dropped into the brewing stand. And the way that is done is every single possible ingredient, every single signal has an AND gate, and it's ANDed with stage 2. So for example, that's the golden carrot AND gate here. So let's turn on golden carrot. Now golden carrot would make a night vision potion. So if we turn on golden carrot, we'll see the signal is activated to the golden carrot AND gate here. Okay, and of course the other half of the AND gate is not on, but when we get to stage 2, that will be activated and cause this AND logic gate to be switched on, and the output would be turned on. And this output here actually goes underground, but it goes directly, not directly, pretty much directly to the dropper for the golden carrot. And every signal has this. If I turned on the speed potion, then it would go back here to the sugar AND gate. And that's also ANDed with stage 2. This is the sugar AND gate. Of course, it's not on right now because I turned it off. And here's the stage 2, and this will go out and directly head towards the sugar dropper. So each of these have an AND gate for all of the various types of main potions, 8 of them, and they're all ANDed with stage 2. Now for the optional ones, they're ANDed with the stage where you would add the optional ingredients. So redstone glowstone you would add in stage 3, and so that's added with blue, which is stage 3, and that's actually all the way over here. Some of this stuff is not easy to find, as you can see. The routing to get this working correctly was really quite difficult. And so here's your stage 3 coming out of your state machine, which we'll talk about in a second. And if you can actually get up there, you can see that it is actually ANDed here with the redstone AND gate, and goes directly into the redstone hopper. So it gives you the basic gist of how the ingredient selection is done. And that's sort of not actually complicated logic-wise, because there's just basically 12 AND gates, but it is very complicated when you look at the actual circuitry, because there's a lot of routing of you have to route all of these levers basically to all of those stages, and then all the way to the droppers. So let's make a potion again, and I will go back to the back half of the factory, which actually takes up half of the space, and that is the state machine, the part that decides what state we're in, and when it should end, and when we should go to the next state. And it also has the tricky job of choosing whether we need to skip states that we don't need. For example, if you didn't select extended or potent, you need to skip that state. We don't want to waste time waiting for it, because you're not actually putting anything in the potion there. So let's pick something interesting, a strength potion, and let's make it a strength 2 potion. So that's a potent potion, and let's make it a splash potion. And let's press the button, and it'll start stage 1, putting in the nether wart. Now let's run in the back, and we can hopefully see a little bit of what's actually going on here. So, did I press the button? Oh yeah, I did. Okay. So the first thing you'll notice is there's this funny contraption making all this noise. Well, this is actually the brew clock. What this is it's a clock that's consists of pistons in sort of a circle square that's pushing around these glass blocks with two opaque blocks in the middle. And what happens is there's a redstone torch in the middle. When there's the glass blocks, it doesn't block the signal, but when the opaque block comes over the signal, it will cut it off. And the reason why this is useful is it lets you to make a very long delay clock. Now this clock is set up so it's maybe a 25-second delay. I'm not exactly sure. Why that is necessary is because there's no way to really tell when brewing is complete. There was going to be a way of using a comparator with a brewing stand, but it actually is not useful. It doesn't work the way that would actually be useful. So what I have to do is I have to estimate the brewing time by using this clock. Okay, so every time this makes a cycle and this opaque block comes around, what happens is it uses a system of pistons here to send out a very, very quick pulse. And the quick pulse goes to the state machine, and the logic in the state machine will sort of increment and iterate through the states. You start off in state 0. There's actually 7 states. 6 of them correspond to the indicator lights and the stages we talked about before. And the last stage is 0, which is the sort of idle state. That's basically means we are not making a potion and we're ready to make one when you ask us to. Okay, so that's the one it starts off in. And pressing that button out there immediately puts it in stage 1 and starts the brew clock. Okay, and I color-coded this so you can see there's red. Now, it's actually all done. You probably heard the beep. So, but it starts off in stage 1, goes to stage 2. Stage 3 is optional, as is stage 4 and 5. Stage 3 is if you need redstone and glowstone. 4 is for fermented spider eye for corrupt, and then 5 for gunpowder. Now, there's logic for each stage that sort of says, for example, stage 4 will say, oh, is it stage 3? And do we actually need stage 3? Well, then let's go to stage 4 of the next brew clock. Likewise, 5 will sort of say, are we stage 4 and there's a brew clock? Let's go to stage 5. But it also will say, if we don't need stage 4, we go to stage 5 directly from stage 3. So you can see this logic gets a little bit complicated with the pretty complex ands, especially when you get to stage 6, because you can go to stage 6 directly from stage 2, directly from 3, directly from 4, directly from 5. And that's all done with a series of AND gates. That's all is really necessary. And as you can see here, here's your basic AND gate. Looks like this. It's signals coming into 2 torches, and there's a torch on the end for the output. And here's another example of an AND gate. Now, nice thing I learned about these AND gates as I went on is they don't have to be straight in a line. They can be L-shaped. They can be really long. You can have the signal come in from the side. You can have it come in from the bottom. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of flexibility. Also, I found something nifty on the internet was a 3-input AND gate. And a 3-input AND gate looks a little different, works essentially the same way. You need to have all 3 inputs be on for the output to be on. Here's an example of a 3-input AND gate. It's not a straight one either. You can see there's torches on the bottom. Those blocks are the inputs. Actually, this input actually comes from underneath. You can't even see it. And these come from the side. No torches on the top, and this torch is the output. And this actually output will only go on when all 3 inputs are active. So that's really the gist of all the logic. Oh, there's also latches. Now, latches are very, very important. That's what actually lets you store what state you are in. And I just use the most basic RS latch. There's many, many ways to do latches in Minecraft. This is probably, I found, the simplest way. You can see it right here is a green one. This is for stage 2. You can just see there's 2 torches on 2 blocks that are separated by a block and offset by 1. It doesn't really matter which side is the set or the reset. I mark it here so I know. And essentially the great thing about this is if you turn on this signal, then this signal goes off. And it stays that way until you turn on this signal, and then that signal goes off. So that's really nice. It's a nice way to switch on and off. And have it save the state for 1-bit signal like that. Now the downside of these latches, of course, is that the outputs, if your output has a signal and it feeds back into the latch, it can actually reset or set the latch when you don't want it to. So sometimes you actually have to put a repeater out here to prevent your signals from going in the wrong direction. Basically, the outputs are not protected. Neither are the inputs, too. Well, it doesn't even, the inputs and the outputs are sort of both the same. So that's how the latches work. Now there's some levers here that I use to just basically set this by hand when I'm debugging and try to figure it out. This lever activates the brew clock. So that's basically the gist of all the logic here. So you can see there's a lot of logic. Goes up pretty high, and actually a significant portion of the logic, I'd say maybe about a quarter of it, is underground. So there's a lot of AND gates and routing underground too. And let's just go up here and you can get like maybe a better view of what's going on. So this half on the right is all the state machine. And then here is all the routing. You can see the droppers in front of us. That's all of the routing of the signals to the various droppers to actually make the potions, to release the ingredients for the potions. Here's stage 6. This is the last stage. Now I'm gonna go, I'll go run briefly up onto the roof so you can get a different perspective on all of this. Maybe I'll show you a little bit underground, although not all the passages are easily accessible. It takes a lot of running around this to sort of get yourself acquainted with everything, where everything is. If I hadn't built this, I would be pretty lost. But, you know. Anyways, you can see down here, there is the brew clock. That's sort of the clock that governs the whole system. And all this part is the state machine. If we look down, that's the state machine underneath us. And then up there is all the circuitry for controlling the ingredients. So it controls the states, which have the colored wool outputs to the ingredient machine, basically. I guess you can call it that. So yeah, this took a lot of sandstone and glass to build. Filling up, how many slots? 27 slots, maybe 4 or 5 times. Took about maybe 4 or 5 Minecraft days using very efficiency 3 or 4 shovel, I think, to mine enough sandstone and sand to make the enclosure here. I'm not sure how much cobblestone I used because I had a lot of it already, but probably 50 stacks of redstone. That was the only thing I really had to mine. I had a sheep farm, so I maybe used about 20 stacks of wool. Probably not that many, maybe only a dozen stacks of wool. That wasn't that bad. If I did it again, I probably wouldn't use any cobblestone and do this all in wool, just because it was very nice to color code, as I mentioned earlier. Now let me show you the place where the potions are actually delivered and how that works. Let's see if there's enough room in here. Oh, yep, here's our splash potion 2 of strength that we just made, of healing, sorry. Oh, strength. Where's the other one? Actually, is there 3 spots? 1, 2... Make sure there's at least 3 spots. And let's make something else. Let's see. Let's make fire resistance. It's also a very useful potion. And let's make it extended. And yeah, let's make it splash. Okay. So let me show you here. Now this is a little nether wart farm I have. And this is the mechanism for potion delivery. So what happens, as you can see here, I'll show you in a second, there's a stream. It's right up here. Goes underneath the floor from the brew stand. That's the one with ice underneath it. Now, if you look closely down there, you can see hopper. And the potions end up in that hopper, and they're automatically brought to these droppers here. Now, this bottom dropper here has a comparator. It can tell when there's something in it. And it will then activate and turn on this whole complex system, which basically is a pulse generator that will send a series of pulses for maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 seconds to all of these droppers that move the potions up to the top and then across to the chest where we are. Now, when that potion is done in about a minute, we can see this in action. These repeaters are basically just a very primitive but simple way of making a delay to turn on this mechanism for just 8 seconds. I originally was experimenting with more complex comparators on every single dropper to try to have each one detect when there was an object in it to move on, but that didn't work so well. First of all, the wiring was very tricky. Also, I'm not sure if they're buggy or if they're meant to work this way, but sometimes they would end up with an object in them and they would activate, but the object wouldn't move, and so they would stay active, but they would never actually move the object because they only move when they're turned on or off. If they're just stuck on, they don't do anything. So it's only during that transition. It's just like basically you have to flip the switch constantly to get it to do something. So here you go. You can see the pulses coming out from the pulse generator, which is a piston, and this set of repeaters is what actually made the delay long enough for it to make it all the way to the top. And I use these piston pulse generators a lot. You can probably see, you might have noticed a bunch of them back in the main part of the factory. And the reason why I do that is because we don't have the advantage of real edge-triggered logic here for the state machines in particular. So we need to make a very brief pulse to make sure the states transition correctly. And that was probably the trickiest part of this potion factory. You couldn't rely on just, you know, putting the logic in there and hoping it would work. You had to be very careful with the timing, because if you just sort of sent the signal and didn't think about it, you could easily end up skipping a state, going right through it, because like I said, it's not edge triggered but level triggered, or you could end up getting stuck on a state if your timing is wrong. So the best way to do that is add in repeaters with appropriate delay, so that when the brew clock came along, you'd go to the next state, but you wouldn't go 2 states ahead, you know, or you wouldn't get stuck in a state. So let's see if this actually worked. Well, here we go. Here are splash potions of fire resistance of 6 minutes, extended splash potions right here. These are pretty useful too if you go to the Nether with some friends or something. So basically, I think that's the whole thing. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments. If you have any criticisms or anything, I would like to hear it. This is my first video. I plan on making more. I have a really neat double spider grinder that I built that I would like to make a video for, and a relatively simple but maybe still interesting sugarcane farm that I'd like to show people. But please, I wish I could give you schematics for all this, how all works, but I could definitely at least describe it, or even make another video if you have particular questions about any part of it. But thanks for watching, and good luck.